Our region's business is sponsored by PNC for the achiever in you.
Our region has won well-deserved global recognition for 2 generations of transformation. Yet there's still plenty of work to be done, especially when it comes to filling the pipeline of skilled workers to replace retiring baby boomers and new jobs being created. Inflection Point, a recent report on the future of work in our region by the Allegheny Conference, details a demand for 340,000 workers over the next 10 years to replace retirees and fill 50,000 new jobs. Yet when you look at the pipeline emerging to replace them, it turns out the region is 80,000 short. And that assumes that all 260,000 young people that will complete high school over that time will actually graduate with a diploma, something that turns out to be a big assumption. The disparity in K-12 school performance throughout our region has been on the mind of Dr. Olga Welch during her entire tenure as the Dean of the School of Education at Duquesne University, a tenure that's just about to wrap up a little later this summer, and she's here today to talk to us a little bit about how the region's doing in this respect and how far we've come and what we have yet to do. First off, congratulations on a great tenure at Duquesne.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and you know, this has been front of mind and really something you've made a personal mission during your tenure, the whole issue of social justice in education. And we have issues in our region, even today.
I would agree, and one of the things that I think is a problem is that people define social justice in many, many different ways. And so, as you know, we had a series of community forums at Duquesne, and where we invited a large number of stakeholders to actually sit down and interrogate the question of what would a socially just education look like for all children in Pennsylvania. And we dialogued and of course found out that there were many different definitions of social justice, and we talked about, well, what does it mean to dialogue? We brought in experts who essentially told us it's nice to dialogue, but what are going to be your outcomes?
Yeah, what do we do?
What do we do? And as you will remember, we tied it to actually looking at policy recommendations that we submitted in a town hall to Representative Reed from Pennsylvania. And that was occasioned by the poverty report that his task force put together.
Yeah, and you know, the disparity from school district to school district is really pretty embarrassing when you look at it. I know that the Allegheny Conference's Inflection Point report said in our region, in our 10 counties, we've got 25 of the best school districts in Pennsylvania, and we have about 30 of the worst. Yeah. And you know, should a child's future depend on an accident of which zip code you live in? No.
And I think the sad thing, and actually the thing that should make us all extremely unhappy, to say the very least, is we know the what. We have data and from multiple sources that tell us what constitutes excellent education, how one can get there, what would be the benchmarks. We know that. So the question that I think we need to ask ourselves is why? Why have we 30 school districts that are not performing as they should, and what can we do about that? And I'm not suggesting yet one more initiative, but how do we tie together what works in school districts that we know are excellent to what can work in school districts that are not necessarily transplanting strategies, but what are the strengths within those poorer districts that we're not even capitalizing on?
Yeah, and this poverty report that Dave Reed put out really has some of these policy prescriptions. Is that the next step, to actually go to Harrisburg and work on change?
I think that beginning to have that conversation in Harrisburg is an important one, and across constituencies, across party lines. I think that the what question should be, what's really going on here? Why, in the face of all of these data, do we not see the change we as citizens of Pennsylvania would expect for all of our children?
Yeah, so we only have a minute left, but I got to ask you about that. The data exists. You do all this research at your school of education, I'm sure at other schools of education across Pennsylvania. Why does that not necessarily get translated into what best practices work and what the rest of us can do about it?
I think, unfortunately, we are our own worst enemies in terms of the ways in which we explained. So when people ask us, well, what do you think we should do? We say, well, on the one hand, there's this, and on the other hand, there's that. And policymakers and regular citizens say, could you just give us one hand?
One hand, at least the better hand.
What is the
right?
better hand?
You know?
Just pick one. But tell us in language we can understand.
Yeah.
And I think we tend too much to speak from places that people don't understand. And I don't just mean policymakers, but I mean the stakeholders on the ground, the parents and the children and the teachers and the principals and the superintendents. They want to hear from us. They know we have the data. They want us to take those data and connect them to outcomes that they can measure and can see.
All right. Well, words to the wise for your successor at Duquesne University School of Education, and I guess to everybody in general who cares about this issue. Dr. Olga Welch, thank you so much. Great
Thank
to
you
see
for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it. And next up, we'll be back in a minute with a little dollars and cents. Stay with us.